Welcome to the Christmas special of the Tech Leaders podcast. And wow, have we got a great guest for this festive occasion. Jazz Carlin. You may have heard of her. She was all over our screens for a number of years during the Olympics, the Commonwealth Games, and so on and so forth. Jazz started as a competitive swimmer at the age of 7 and is now, having retired at the age of 28, an Olympic silver medalist, double silver medalist, Commonwealth Games, and a European gold medalist, and has also recently embarked on a career in technology. Jazz talks about her incredible career with amazing lessons that she has learned and the wisdom and habits that she cultivated during that time in her life that she's taken through into her new professional career. Jazz talked candidly about making sacrifices to become an elite competitor, but about being the least competitive person in her family, missing out on London 2012 and the setback and the disappointment of that and bouncing back, plus her experience of transitioning from a competitive swimmer into a business person working in the tech sector. What an episode. This is Jazz Carlin. Jazz, thank you so much for coming on the Tech Leaders podcast. I've been really excited about this one. Lovely Christmas tree. How are things with you?
Yeah, it's great actually to come onto a podcast where I'm not, I guess, talking about sport all the time. It's mixing it up, I guess, this time, which is nice. But no, all is really well. Thank you. Feeling pretty festive and yeah, looking forward to Christmas and the end of the year. So all really positive.
I am, unfortunately, or fortunately for the listeners, going to ask you a little bit about your sporting career, Jazz. How could we not do that? Let's just start with this one, though. Obviously, we're a leadership podcast. What does good leadership mean to you?
Oh, it's a great question and probably one that I could talk about for the whole podcast, really. I've been very lucky to have some incredible leaders through sport, which I feel like I've kind of learnt so many different things from the coaches and the leaders that I've been surrounded by. But I guess taking bits and using it from my personality and what I'm like as well. But I think for me, great leadership is being able to lead from the front, leading by example. And it's just super important to have the kind of bond and relationship, where there's open communication, there's full trust and respect. And I guess being able to kind of, I say, like the door's always open, feeling like you are there for your team and that you're going through it with them. So that support is huge. And I do think kind of leading by example and being able to support them as much as possible. It's a really difficult one because I could talk about it for so long, so many different areas, but they would probably be my roundup.
Let me spin it like this then, Jazz. What if I was to call up one of your colleagues, peers, team members? What do you think they would say about you? How would they describe Jazz, do you think?
Oh, it's a difficult. I'm ever much like an optimist. I am very positive. I always try and see the positive in like every situation on how we can actually see, whether it is an obstacle or a hurdle, just how can we get over it. I think giving as much support, I am very much one for a process. I get a lot of my team to focus on the process, on how they're going to try and achieve their outcome, ticking off the little things during the week that's going to give them the outcome they want at the end of the week. But I guess it's hard to describe how people would describe myself, but I guess knowing that I'm there to support, I'm always there for them, but also there to kind of push them and challenge them to see what they can achieve as well.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I know this is a bit of a not a popular question with everyone, but I just wanted to ask you to give us a little bit of a high-level overview of your career for people who don't know who you are and where you are now.
Yeah, so my name is Jazz. I come from a sporting background. So I'm a former Team GB and Welsh swimmer. I won 2 silver medals at the Rio 2016 Olympics in the 400 and 800 meters freestyle. So probably the long events where everyone's like, oh my God, they were 4 minutes and 8 minutes long. Also competed at 4 Commonwealth Games and carried the Welsh flag at the 2018 Commonwealth Games. So
Hey.
really special memories through sport. But when I look back, I guess, at my career and, the medals and everything, the thing I probably look at the most, is the journey that it took to get me there, swimming 75 kilometers a week, doing 3 gym sessions, overcoming the disappointments, bouncing back from, I guess, the bad swims, the disappointing ones, and how much I've learned about myself along the way. And
Yeah.
as I said, I am a very positive person. I'm very optimistic, and I think I've learned so much from my swimming career that I'm kind of using now in my new role and new career. That often do refer to it because I think there's so many different learnings that I've brought along the way. So it'd be a shame not to use them.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you've obviously had a sterling career, and like, as we said just before we came on air, you must be very proud. But so I want to unpack that a little bit. Okay, so if we could just go back and cast your mind back to the early days when you were obviously swimming an ungodly amount of lengths at an ungodly hour in the morning before school and things like that. So that part of your life. But I understand that you had a bit of a setback very early on, didn't you? You didn't get selected for the Smart Track program by British Swimming. How did you bounce back from that?
Yeah, it's funny when you look back, and I was 13 years old, and the Smart Track program, to give a bit of context, that was where British swimming felt like they would find the next kind of Olympic stars, the next future stars of the sport. And I was taken into a room, and my height was measured, my wingspan, my weight, my jump, my mum and dad's height and weight were measured. It was a full-on kind of
Really?
interrogation,
Wow.
really. And from that, they deemed that they were actually going to, I guess, find the future stars in our sport, in swimming. So a couple of weeks later, I found out that I actually wasn't picked to be a part of the kind of core program, which obviously as a young girl was very disappointing. And seeing kind of teammates and friends and different people, I guess, being selected, and they had so many different opportunities traveling the world, going on training camps, and went to Australia, I remember, and I was thinking, oh, I would love to have been a part of that. But I guess, like, at the time, I was very lucky and fortunate to have incredible people around me, from my swimming coach, who was very kind of inspirational for me, but also my mum and dad, that kind of have always been, I guess, that had that belief in me and given me that positive encouragement. And I think, part of me really just wanted to, like, that was my dream. And how could someone tell me that, I didn't have a chance of making it go to the Olympics, or I wasn't one of the
Mm,
future stars of the sport? It was like I was in control of that. And
yeah,
even at a young age, I remember thinking, I just want to prove them wrong, and I want to go out. And that's my dream. And, like, how dare someone kind of say to me, that I'm not part of that program? I'm going to go out there and do absolutely everything I can to
sure.
come back and give it my best shot.
Absolutely. And wow, did you go and do that? When you speak to people who have performed, at an elite level in their field, they've often got a bit of a chip on their shoulder because they had some early setback of that nature. Was that the case with you, Jazz? Did you feel you had something to prove them for the rest of your career?
Oh, it's a difficult one to say. I think there's constant challenges throughout my career. When I look back, there's been many times where I've been doubted, or I've been taken off funding when I missed out on
Yeah,
the London 2012 Olympics. And I guess there has been that element of, wanting to come back stronger than ever. But I guess more so than ever, it's kind of proven to myself. I wanted to show myself that I could do it, and that, I work as hard as anyone. I will give my 100 and whatever percent to be at my best. And I guess it's kind of, there could be 100 voices, whether that's in your head or people around you telling you, oh, you can't do this, you're not
sure.
ready, or but listening to kind of like that one voice that's telling you, no, I can do this, and I'm going to give absolutely everything I can to do it. So yeah, I guess there's been lots of challenges, and I'd be lying to say if they didn't drive me. I think, sometimes the biggest of disappointments can lead you on to the biggest triumphs, and the biggest results in my career have come from really disappointing times. But I've learned so much about myself that's actually kind of given me a slingshot to come back stronger than ever.
In terms of setbacks, then, I know you do some coaching.
So I work with swimmers out on my Swimmer Jazz program, and yeah, I basically coach from one-to-ones, swimming camps, a bit of mentoring as well. So I kind of mix it up with different things in the sport, and it still allows me to still stay involved in the sport and still help out as much as possible and give back to a
Sure.
sport that I guess I've done for so long. But I guess for me, it's probably quite different. When I coach and when I work with swimmers, for me, it's about giving every swimmer a really positive experience of the sport. It breaks my heart when I see swimmers that aren't enjoying it, or had kind of negative experiences of swimming that has then led on to later in life maybe not carrying on with the sport. So I really try and give them all the tools that they'll need to, I guess, have in their kind of kit bag to make sure that they have all the tools needed to progress, but also giving them a real positive experience of the sport that they can then, whether that is a dream to go on to the Olympics, or whether it's just a dream to be able to, keep going with the sport and have a real, I guess, positive outlook on the sport. Maybe it's for their mental well-being. I just try and make sure that every swimmer that I work with has a real kind of positive impact of the sport.
Coming from you, I'm sure that's really powerful for them, obviously, because you've just been there and done it, haven't you? But what do you say to them then if they do have a significant setback in their journey? What kind of advice do you give? Are you good on the motivational side? Do you work much on that sort of type of stuff?
I'd like to think so. And to be honest, I think it all comes back from experience. I always draw back from experience. I actually didn't improve in swimming from the age of 14 to 17. And that's, having no signs of improvement, no best times, we call them in swimming. And also the times, where I have had to overcome challenges and, missed out on the Olympics. And I do use my experiences a lot because I think being able to be relatable, being able to have swimmers that understand that you've gone through the same thing. And as I say, breaking down with the process instead of always focusing on the outcome, whether that is, a medal or a best time or this, focus on the process and break it down. So then, you put yourself in the best possible position to achieve the outcome.
Mm,
So, yeah, I think I always draw on experience and I, would like to think that I can hopefully motivate and inspire all the athletes I work with, whether that, as I said, whether the dream is to go on to go to the Olympics or whether the dream is to just be competitive at a county level or, you know, whichever level that is, I hope that I can obviously have an impact on them and hopefully motivate them and inspire them to go on and achieve whatever that is that they want to.
sure, absolutely. So let's go back to your early career then. You moved away at the age of 16, and that must have been quite daunting. You were very young. You've made this enormous commitment that you were going to try and push yourself to become an elite swimmer, go to a major games, and you moved to Swansea, is that right?
Yeah, so it was a difficult decision, at 16 years old to decide whether I push on with my swimming career. I was advised by my old swimming club, look, we can't give you any more pool time. It's obviously restricted when you're at a swimming club. And I was offered an incredible opportunity with Swim Wales at Swansea. So, from my family side, being Welsh, I decided, that was an incredible opportunity for me to move away from home at 16. And it was, I guess, that kind of decision making. Do you go left? Do you go right? Do you stick with left with the road that you're going on where there aren't as many hours in the pool at your swimming club, and I guess maybe not being pushed as hard as I could have been and going to the same school, staying with friends? Or do I go right and kind of take a risk and move away from my family home, move away from friends, and start a new training program with a world-class coach that was coming in for distance swimming, which was my event. So
Mm,
I guess making that decision was tough, but for me, it was, I wanted to put myself in the best possible chance to actually go on to achieve my dreams of going to the Olympics. So for me, it was kind of like that decision that, if I don't do that now, in 2 years' time, it might not be an option. It might not be something I could do. So yeah, decided to move out of home at 16, obviously with the support of my mum and dad. And yeah, it was tough having to go from, I guess, having that huge support around me to, having to do the cooking, cleaning, washing up for myself and having to manage life. I had college in Swansea and then I upped my training from probably 12 to 14 hours to 20 to 25 hours. So it's kind of like a huge shift, but it was kind of going from that, I guess, more amateur age group level into kind of very much a professional environment where the nutritionist was there was physios, there was sports scientists, there was strength and conditioning, and I hadn't been exposed to any of this early on in my career. So I guess to have that support and breaking everything down, and it definitely shifted my mindset and gave me a different look at, like, just what it takes to try and qualify for a GB team. It was not what necessarily always what you're doing in the pool. It's what are you eating? What are you doing in the gym? What are you looking after your body, your sleep, all those different things. So I learned a lot, but I think it was, looking back, the best decision that I made for my swimming career.
So talk us through your regimen then from 16 onwards. What was it? How many hours a week were you training, and how much how much commitment was there in terms of your week towards the swimming? Do you know what I mean? Because obviously, if you, it's not just the training, is it? It's the other stuff on top of it. So, were you full time engaged, or were you working as well and balancing this? How did that look?
Yeah, so I would swim 6 till 8 in the morning. So we'd swim for 2 hours in the morning, and then I would get breakfast at the pool and then walk normally straight up to college. So obviously at 16, couldn't drive either. So I was either trying to get lifts from people or being able to walk to college. It is a very steep hill, in Swansea. So it was always a bit of a challenge after swimming. But yeah, I'd swim 6 till 8, have a day at college, and then come back. Obviously, I have work to do, and we'd swim again in the evening, 5 till 7. So I would, have that most days of the week. That would be a typical day. I would have 20 hours of swimming in a week. And on top of that, there'd be gym training, there'd be physio appointments, there'd be so many different things. And yeah, I guess I'd really kind of thrown myself into it. And it was a big change. I was tired a lot. I had no idea about nutrition and the importance of all those little things. And I remember one morning, even when I look back, I'd probably been living in Swansea maybe 6 months at the time. And I actually slept in one morning. So I don't know what happened, whether I didn't forgot to set my alarm or I slept through and just switched it off and snoozed it and didn't realize. But I remember waking up and I'd like missed swimming and I hadn't gone to college. And I like looked at my phone. I was like, oh my God, like I've missed swimming. And like I felt overcome with emotion. So I rang my coach and I was crying. I was saying, I'm so sorry. Like I've missed swimming. Like I don't know what happened. And he was like, don't worry. He said, if you've slept through, like your body clearly needed a sleep. And I guess what was like a young girl, like just, yeah, couldn't believe that I'd missed a swimming session. Whereas, my coach, I guess, it kind of said to me, look, your body clearly needed it. There's no harm in sleeping in one morning and
Your
missing a
dreams
swimming
are
session.
over. That's what you should have said.
Yeah.
It's all over for you, Jazz. You got to go back to Bradford on Avon. You.
Yeah, so I guess again, just learned so much and developing. But at 16, I was young. I had no idea about again what the commitment of swimming and what it was required of
Sure.
me. And I quickly had to learn and start to become quite professional, while also, I guess, at 16 being quite probably hormonal. I was quite sensitive. And
Where do you live in Swansea?
so I lived in Sketty.
Oh, I know it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I lived with other swimmers, which definitely helped. And we lived in a swimmer's house and we were surrounded by swimmers. So I think that definitely was great for me, having that support at such a young age. As living with other swimmers definitely made it easier.
And you were not far from the Gower either, which is one of the nicest parts of the world, in my opinion. I love Rossilly and all that. So I'm not sure if you got any sea swimming in, but yeah, I would highly recommend it if you have. I'm sure you probably have many times, but but yeah, it's a good place to socialize and to spend that time in your life, I suppose, isn't it? But so I want to talk about major competitions. I'm assuming your training is cyclical and periodized around trials, around competitions, etc., etc. So how do you prepare for a major competition? Maybe talk about the Olympics. When does your preparation for the Olympics start, and how do you prepare for such an incredible event like that?
When I look back, we would normally work in 4-year cycles. So we would have, 4 years between the Olympics, which is what makes the Olympics so great. Is it's not every day, it's not, next weekend, it's not every year, it's every 4 years, which definitely kind of heightens, I guess, the excitement and the emotions from like an athlete level and everything every 4 years. But we'd normally work in 4-year cycles. So every 4 years, you'd plan out the year. The following year, it'd be a World Championships. Following year, Commonwealth Games and the Europeans, and then the next year, World Championships, and then you finish off with the Olympics. So it would be based off that for a 4-year plan. But when I look back, I probably say I was spending my whole life training really for that moment in the Olympics, because I might have been 4 years of focus, but also all the years in the lead up and the training, it doesn't kind of just switch on because it's the Olympics. But
Yeah.
I guess that 4-year cycle, and it's kind of hitting the stepping stones, as I said, the kind of process to get there. I remember my coach saying a year before the Olympics, he always says, this is the year that we have the Olympic shift. So the year before the Olympics, he said, I want you to absolutely give 110%. There's no stones unturned, making sure that you give like absolutely everything this year. And even though I felt like I was doing that the year before and the year before that, it's kind of like that kind of shift in your mindset that, every I guess, decision that you make, every thing that you do is kind of having that in the back of your mind. This is my kind of shift towards the Olympics. I'm doing this for the Olympics. If there's a weekend, in the lead up to a competition that you have free, it's, making the decision for your performances. I should actually stay home, rest and recover and relax, and shouldn't be out walking 10 miles on a weekend because my legs will be tired for the competition that I've got coming up. So I guess in the Olympics, we would have the trials, which were run in March or April, I think. And then you have the Olympics in August.
Mm,
So you only have 1 week to qualify for the Olympics. So even though you've trained for years and years for that moment, if you're ill or injured, there's no choices. You have to qualify in that week. There's no
sure.
let-offs. So I guess you've prepared, but it does bring a lot of kind of emotions and
Yeah.
pressure in that week to make sure that you're at your very best to qualify for the Olympics. And it's not even necessarily always about achieving the qualifying time to go or anything. It's about you've got to become in the top two. More so in British swimming now, you've got to win the event to kind of guarantee your place and get the time to go. So
Yeah,
it's a
sure.
lot of pressure in that 1 week. But I actually found the Olympic trials was more stressful than the Olympics itself, which is
Yeah.
funny. But that kind of pressure to get there, once I was there, I loved it, enjoyed every minute of it.
Yeah, I can imagine that though, because once you're gearing up to that sort of trial, I suppose, you know what I mean? There's such a big prize to just go to the Olympics is incredible, isn't it? Where I'm going with this is that you obviously I've heard you talking about this in the past on how you had a process or a protocol leading up to a race whereby you would do the same sort of thing each time, listen to the same music, do this, So the question is, you must be in reasonably high pressure situations these days, even if it's a call with an important client or something like that. But is there anything from your sporting life that you've taken through to your professional career, your new career, in terms of dealing with high pressure situations and being able to perform at the right time?
Oh, 100%. And it's funny because when I look back now, even with my career and, as you say, taking on like a kind of new journey, I feel like I could never experience the same amount of pressures and like highs that I've experienced like in sports, the environment and, you know, if I didn't perform at the international competition, like my funding would be taken off me. So that would give me nothing. I would have nothing to train with. I would have to look after my own finances. But also, like, I guess with swimming, the competition, there has always been that. And I've been surrounded by in a competitive environment since I remember doing my first competition at like 7 or 8 years old. I was competing. And so it kind of feels like it's just part of my lifestyle. So I love being in a pressure environment. I feel like I thrive in a pressured environment. I
Mm,
feel like it brings the best out of me. I feel like I perform at my best and I enjoy those moments because, when you retire from sport, it can feel like, you've experienced so many highs and adrenaline and pressure environments. Now I actually am like grateful and love those environments and I feel like it brings out the best in me. So I do bring lots from my swimming career now and as I said I still love that feeling which definitely taken into my new career.
most 13-year-old girls don't get up at 5 in the morning to go and do 2 hours in the pool and then move to like 100 miles away from where you're from just to devote a career to athletics. You obviously had natural talent, but you know talent doesn't really get you to the Olympics. It's an enormous amount of dedication and drive. Why have you got that dedication and drive? Where does it come from?
The golden question. Looking back, I think when I have a look at it, I think who I was surrounded by has played a really huge part. I've been very lucky to have coaches that have really challenged me, have, really managed to get the best out of me and inspired me and motivated me. But also my mum and dad. I actually think I'm the least competitive in my family. My mum and dad are super competitive as well. Don't play any board games with them because
I was going
honestly.
to say Trivial Pursuit must be interesting around Christmas time, then
Yeah.
it.
But no, I guess being surrounded, but I remember from a young age, my mum and dad giving me exposure and getting me to try out so many different sports. And I loved it. I absolutely love sport. I still do now. But I guess having that exposure, like swimming was just a sport I loved. And I always remember my dad saying to me, I'll race you to the football post, or I'll race you to the tree. Or it was kind of always a kind of that competitive side of things.
Yeah.
And then probably just nurtured by some incredible coaches and some incredible people around me that have really given me the power to use, I guess, as you say, use. You will have some form of natural talents as well, but having the mindset to go with it is probably half the battle, and also a
Yeah.
struggle as well. So I think they've got to work hand in hand. But learning from so many different situations in life. I remember my dad has had 2 strokes, so he was in hospital for a large amount of time, and swimming was that escape for me. It was that place where I could go and my head would be in the water and I could really escape and give me some focus. It's always been that place that I'd loved. And at times there has been challenges and some tears after some poor races, but at the end of the day, like, I loved the ability to be able to race. I loved being in that environment, the adrenaline. But to say, I guess, where it's come from, probably some maybe born with, some nurtured from family and coaches, but probably learning from experience as well, which has been, the more you learn from experience, the more it kind of drives you on to be better each day.
Do you miss it?
Oh, I do miss parts of it. I do miss parts of it. I miss the competitions and the racing, and I miss feeling like I was, in the best shape and the fittest, one of the fittest distance swimmers in the world. I miss those feelings, but I think, for me, looking back, I was ready to hang up my goggles, as you say.
Yeah.
It was the right time. I'd achieved everything I'd wanted to, and I was kind of ready for a new chapter. So I do look back probably with great memories, and that I was ready to step away, instead of, I guess, coming from the other angle where injuries or different things can force people to hang up the goggles. But for me, it was kind of from a place of being ready and ready to take on a new chapter.
If you could change anything about your career, what would it be? What regrets do you have?
I actually don't think I have any regrets. I think I learned so much from my swimming career. Obviously, missing out on the London 2012 Olympics with glandular fever was a huge disappointment. But I guess coming back to the Rio Olympics, would I have achieved and had that experience in Rio? I'm not sure. So I actually wouldn't really change anything. I think if I could probably do one thing, it would be to tell myself, I wish I had more confidence in myself. I was
Yeah.
always kind of questioning myself if I was good enough, have I done enough work? Whereas when I look back at some of the things that I used to do in swimming, some of the training sessions were world class, were unbelievable. But it's only now when I reflect and I look back on them now and I'm like, why didn't I have the confidence? Because looking now, I think, wow, that is incredible. But at the time, I was always chasing to be better and to do it faster and to be stronger, all those different things, instead of actually, I guess, having the confidence in what I was doing and believing in myself.
There's so much wasted talent off the back of lack of confidence, isn't it? It's something that affects so many people. In fact, it affects everyone, really, doesn't it? But look, I want on a bit more of a jovial note, Jazz. Okay, I'm sure people would be fascinated to know, what's the Olympic Village like? I heard there's a McDonald's there. Is that true?
Yeah, there's a McDonald's in the athletes' village. It's pretty great,
You must have come across some people like Usain Bolt and stuff like that. You must have a little bit of like, oh my God, look who's by there. It's Michael Phelps or something, you know? It must be an incredible place, though.
Yeah, it's just very surreal, I think, being surrounded by world class athletes and seeing Andy Murray train on the tennis courts and in the village, and seeing Usain Bolt just walking around the village. And it's just surreal, all sports stars being in one place and being in a village. But yeah, it is a bit of a crazy experience. And, for me, the highlight is probably the dining hall, 24 hours of food, just as many different foods as you can imagine. But yeah, it's a really incredible place, and a bit surreal. You kind of feel like you're in a bubble, but obviously know that you've got some like really important races that you've been training your whole lives for
Sure.
as well.
Well, I've got to ask you, when people finish and they maybe win a gold medal and they want to like celebrate a little bit, do they kind of get put in a different part of the village? Because obviously they don't want to be noisy with this other athletes trying to go to sleep for their main event the next day. How does that dynamic work? Or do they just get kicked out straight away when their participation in the Olympics ends?
Yeah, no, you all stay in the village. So it's kind of like a tower block. a hotel kind of thing.
Okay.
And the swimmers are known to like finish early, so they put you on like the top floor or the bottom floor, so you're kind of away
Sure.
from other sports. So they do try and like put the sports that are like done closer together, closer to each other, so they don't disrupt anyone else. But yeah, you're not moved to anywhere special, so you just have to, I guess, work around it.
Fair play. Okay, no worries. Look, you decided to hang your goggles up, as you called it, and then you obviously embark on a career in the sort of tech world. Well, how did that come about? Actually, let's talk about that day when you decided to retire, or the lead up to that day, and then how you ended up like going on the path that you have. How did that come about?
Yeah, so I guess from my side of things, after Rio, I kind of started doing some open water swimming. So I would do some 10-kilometer races, and I went to the Commonwealth Games. Didn't have my best races there. I came back and I had pneumonia after the Commonwealth Games, so I was
Oh
kind
no.
of quite ill that year, and I guess a lot of different bits going on. But I started to think I have achieved everything I want to in the sport, and as I said, with illnesses and different bits, do I want to keep pushing myself, and do I still have it in me
Yeah.
to go to another Olympics? And it was a difficult decision, but it was something that I felt like I was ready for. So as hard as it was, and the transition and the adapting to normal life, and I guess my whole identity has been around swimming, it felt like the right time. So, looking back at 28 is one on the older end for swimming. So I don't think it was kind of a huge shock, but definitely the right time and the right decision for me. And even though it was a bit of kind of a transition, going through everything and getting used to a different way of life. And, I've always done sport because, that's what I've done, and it turned into my career, if you call it that. So I guess then adjusting to, doing sport now because for enjoyment and for fun, still kind of adjusting to that and getting used to normal life.
Yeah, for sure. So you took a bit of a break, after swimming. I take it then, and then did you go straight into sort of a like a tech orientated role, or was there a bit of a lead up, to, a build up to that, or what? I know you work for Source Whale as well, so maybe you could tell how that come about and what Source Whale do.
Yeah, so I was very lucky, when I retired from swimming, that a lot of different opportunities came my way. So, from school visits, swimming camps, corporate talks, events, traveling, various different bits, which, I've really loved and enjoyed doing. I love giving back to sport. I love being able to still work in sport. But it was only, I guess, over the last couple of years, especially kind of during COVID, it really made me miss that feeling of always feeling, I guess, like I'm on a pathway. As I said, that 4-year cycle of the Olympics, there was always something at the end of each year that I was really driving towards, that was challenging me each and every day. And it was only at the start of this year that I spoke to a mentor, and they said, look, I think you should look at the tech space. It's very similar to sport. You get rewarded for your hard work. It's a very challenging, fast paced environment. There can be a lot of pressure involved. And, there are a lot of similarities with sport. There's activity numbers to hit. There's, as you say, the pathway. So I then started to look at my options, and funny enough, I applied to quite a few different roles, and I was knocked back several times with no experience, no experience, no experience. And I was thinking, well, how am I supposed to get experience if I can't get my foot in the door anywhere? So it was quite
Yeah.
difficult with that. But for me, I ended up with an opportunity at my previous company called SAS Leads. I did an interview with them, and it seemed to go down really well. They seemed to love me and my energy, and I guess what I had to offer with my experience. So they said they'd train me into a sales role to be an SDR coach. So essentially, I did 4 weeks of intense learning, all around the fundamentals of sales. And, it was a real learning for me. I was like, wow, all these different points and things that I guess I hadn't really been exposed to. I've been
Yeah.
used to, in a way, sounds bad, selling myself, with sponsorship and different things, but
Sure.
learning something new, I absolutely loved. And kind of threw myself into it really. And then after that, I took on a group of SDRs. So I was coaching them on all the things I'd learned, and
Yeah.
yeah, really using the kind of mentoring experience that I have and all the things that I'd learned through sport to be able to develop them as like individuals, but also as a coach. And then I was in that role for 4 to 5 months. And unfortunately, the kind of company took a bit of a downturn and more recently has gone into administration. So I guess it led me into looking for different roles. And I was very lucky as soon as I'd had experience on my CV that a lot of more people were interested
Sure.
in talking with me. And I was lucky with a few different opportunities to come my way, but I came across Source Whale, and to be honest, it was recommended by my old manager, and he said, I think you should look at them. They're a great group. And that's where it started off, really. I spoke with them, and to be honest, I loved the team. I got a real feel of the team and the energy, and they were very similar to me, with the kind of very optimistic, very positive people. And yeah, loved the product. So I ended up joining them. I've been with them coming up to 3 months. So it's a crazy new challenge. I'm now an SDR manager, and I'm managing a team of, we've got 7 SDRs. And again, using lots of different experiences, coaching them, mentoring them, working with them to help them develop in the best way possible, and supporting them to challenge them in different ways, but also to try and get the best out of them and support them as much as possible. So yeah, I guess that's kind of what led me to the tech space. A bit of a long answer.
Yeah, you've been working in the tech sector for a couple of months then, and yeah, obviously Source Whale sound fantastic. They seem to be in line with the way the recruitment technology sector is moving. You know what I mean? To these platforms whereby companies do resource through these sort of intermediary platforms. The one thing that really stands out for me is that you come into technology, the tech sector, at the sort of beginning of this work from home revolution. So you never really had to, go into the office 9 to 5 every day. But nonetheless, there was still probably a big shift for you in terms of your life as a swimmer into the structure of your working week as a a business person, so to speak. How did you adapt? Was that hard for you? Or was it a doddle because you used to getting up at 5 a.m. and going swimming, I suppose?
Yeah, it's not been too bad, to be honest. I think because I'd had a bit of time after swimming as well, I guess I'd had that time to go off and do various different things. And yeah, would I guess being behind a desk all day and being behind a computer can be challenging at times. I have actually been looking at like maybe a walking desk or like a standing desk, so I am not sat down all the time. But I don't find the challenge. The days just seem to go so quickly, and I love the group that I work with. And I guess, when you're being challenged every day and when you're working with a great group, the days just seem to go so quickly. And I normally go into the office into London once a week. So I guess I still get that kind of group experience to be around everyone. Even if I'm not there every day. So we, I guess, have that kind of flexible working where you can work from home, you can go into the office. But I do love being around people. I think, being able to just bounce a question or being around people, you feel like you can get a lot more from people.
So, look, the technology sector. Are you a bit of a techie at heart, Jazz? What tech innovation are you most excited by in the world right now?
It's funny, isn't it? Because I probably wouldn't say that I am the most tech person. I like to think, I guess, how I think and how I am. I'm quite forward thinking, and it can adapt and change quite quickly. It's fast paced, so I'm very
Yeah,
similar with that. But I guess in terms of the tech world, I'm still very new to it and still getting to know a lot of different platforms. Obviously, in my previous role, I used a lot of kind of tools to allow the SDRs to perform at their best, and now using Sourcewell, we use the tool to the SDRs and my team are using Sourcewell every single day. So I guess when you're using the tech as well, you definitely do get a bit more passionate and do love it.
sure.
So it's an impressive bit of kit, and it's yeah, you can see the true power of it when you're using it as well, which definitely helps.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds like you're more passionate about on the people side, though. Yeah.
I would say more passionate about the people and the support, I guess, of the team that I've got. But it obviously does help when you've got a really great product as well,
Yeah.
and being able to share that. But yeah, I guess the people and the support. But when you've got a great product and product around, it definitely makes a big impact.
So you also do some coaching on the side, and you're also involved with Swim Wales. Is that the case?
Yeah, so I still do some coaching, some one-to-one coaching and some swim camps, which is great because it still allows me to still, I guess, be involved, still have my foot in the water or toes in the water, as you say. But it's great, I still can have that relationship with swimmers and being able to give back to the sport, but also with Swim Wales, and I do work with their kind of development programs to support them. So being able to have a mixture and still be able to be involved in sport in some way definitely it gives me a lot of fulfillment on both ends, really.
So if looking back now then, Jazz, if you could give yourself at the beginning of your career, a single piece of advice, what would you say?
Oh, it's a tricky one. There's probably a few things. I know I mentioned around the confidence,
Yeah,
so always believing in
sure.
yourself and being able to, you can only do your best. Always give your best and 100%. And I think probably from like a career perspective, it's, learning to always ask questions, never be afraid to ask a question, no matter how small, or, if something doesn't make sense. I always just encourage people to ask questions. I'd rather you ask questions because either that means like it's not maybe been explained as well, or there's not been an understanding of it. So asking questions, like,
Sure.
I love just being able to ask questions and explore and understand. So
Do,
yeah, they would
do you know? Do
probably.
you know what, Jazz? That is something that holds so many people back. Is having childlike curiosity. Sort of basically having the bravery to just ask essentially stupid questions. They're not stupid questions because most of the time they're fine questions, but asking questions which could be perceived as being stupid questions, it kind of paralyzes some people, and they never ask the question, so therefore they never fully understand things. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. And for me, I always ask questions and I always try to understand it as deep as possible, and
Sure.
just being able to ask as many questions and not be afraid. Is you never look silly. It's better to actually develop yourself and understand it further than, go in the unknown and not really quite know. So asking questions, I'd say, is definitely a powerful one.
Yeah, for sure. I knew you're a fan of the chimp paradox, which I massively would recommend myself as well. I'm a big fan of that book. But aside from that, or maybe that, if you want to emphasize that one, what book or piece of other content would you recommend, or that you have been inspired by?
Yeah, there's probably been a few. As you say, the chimp paradox. I have read a lot about that, and as I said earlier, having that, there could be 100 voices telling you can't do it and you're not ready, but listening to that one voice. And so we used to work a lot with that in swimming. I think another book that I read throughout sport that I do feel is quite profound now is "Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway," and that was always something that really helped me, I guess, in my career. Is you will have fear and there will be times where you're not sure if you can do this, but you still can do it.
Do you know the author of that?
Oh, I'm not 100%
Because
sure.
we'll pop it on the show notes, but I'll check that one out. I have heard of that one, but I don't, yeah, not read it. We'll dig that out and put it on the show notes, I think.
Yeah, that was one of the books. And then probably from a sales perspective, I read Chris Voss Never Split the Difference when I was kind of recommended by a mentor. And I guess in sales and in life and understanding, and it was actually really useful. And I recommend it to a lot of the SDRs, just how from an FBI negotiator actually working in sales and trying to understand. And I think it's really useful in sales. So they're probably
Yeah,
the three
sure.
that I've used.
Yeah, Never Split the Difference. Absolute classic. I've read that one myself. It's a brilliant read for sure. So what's next for Jazz Carlin then? What have you got coming up that you're excited about? What endeavors are you involved with right now?
To be honest, I guess the team I'm working with now, just looking forward to, keep building the team, and it's an exciting time. We had our best ever month in November. So I think everyone was talking about the doom and gloom of sales in November, and the team smashed it. So I guess carrying that on and developing the team as much as possible. And then really just to keep going with that, keeping my foot in sport and being able to give back. But I'm all one for consistency. So just being able to, as you say, consistently working with the team and supporting, and having consistency, I guess leads to the best results. So yeah, I guess lots to look forward to, but it feels difficult to say on one thing, just to keep the momentum going.
Brilliant. Well, Jazz, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed chatting. I mean, there was so much there. I've never interviewed somebody with such a sterling background of achievements and just really, really brilliant to unpack some of the amazing experiences that you've been lucky enough and hardworking enough to achieve. So yeah, thank you for that. It's been some fantastic insight. Thank you for coming on the Tech Leaders podcast. Well, where can people find you, by the way?
Yeah, so on LinkedIn as Jazz Carlin, and yeah, I'm on kind of social media platforms, Twitter and Instagram as well at Jazz Carlin, with swim camps and various different bits. So yeah, mixture of LinkedIn and social media, just at Jazz Carlin.
There are so many pivotal moments in this conversation which we could throw out there, but I would like to emphasize 2 points. Firstly, Jazz had setbacks in her career, lots of them, as everyone does. From being told that she wasn't an elite swimmer at the age of 13, right through to missing out on the London 2012 Olympics with glandular fever, which was heartbreaking for Jazz at the time. And, so Jazz talks about utilizing those setbacks as fuel and, essentially things like proving people wrong, for example, but also, having faith in the process and believing in yourself, in terms of motivating yourself for the next challenge. So she talks about how her coaches gave her a foundational framework to success. And she knew that if she followed those protocols and those processes, she would get close to her best, but needed to stay confident in herself. And self-confidence is a big part of what we discussed. Interestingly, Jazz also mentioned that she got more nervous for the Olympic trials than the Olympics themselves, but that just goes to show how much pressure comes from within. Putting pressure on yourself is sometimes the most intense type of pressure. And that leads us on, this is quite a salient point and leads us on really well to the second thing that really stood out for me, which is dealing with high pressure situations. Jazz talks openly about how she gets mentally prepared for important commitments by utilizing mindset shifts and techniques that she learned during her career. Essentially, what she emphasized most was focusing on the process, not the outcome, which may be counterintuitive for some people who've put this. It may sound a little bit upside down, but Jazz explained it really well and just mentioned that you need to break the journey down to reach the destination, and focusing on breaking down that training program or whatever it is into digestible chunks so that you've got those small wins going through the process of meeting a bigger goal. I thought that was fascinating. She also talks about drawing on her experience of preparing for major events quite a lot through the conversation and sort of shifting mindset and making sacrifices to achieve goals. I thought that was fascinating. I think the competitor will always be in there. And I think she's a fascinating character. There's some incredible achievements. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I loved doing it. It was a fantastic conversation. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank you for downloading this episode. We really love doing this show and are absolutely humbled by all of the incredible people who download and listen, plus the incredible guests who take the time to come on and share their secrets and experiences with our listeners. Please can I ask that you take a couple of seconds to subscribe or follow the show. This small action means a lot to us and helps us greatly. Thank you. As you quite possibly have heard me mentioning in the past, we record the mass majority of our episodes at an amazing studio facility here in Cardiff at Tramshed Tech. Tramshed Tech is a collaborative community of entrepreneurs and scaling businesses geared towards supporting growth in tech, digital and creative industries across an ever-increasing collection of locations and partner locations, UK-wide and internationally. It really is the perfect place for your business to start up, scale up, accelerate, or innovate. Head over to tramshedtech.co.uk or just search Tramshed Tech on your favorite social media platform.